What's up, guys, and welcome to part 1 of What If Deku Had Asta's Powers. Now, before we get into what if, I know I messed up on doing the thumbnail bit. You don't have to inform me. I couldn't really find a good Deku plus one of Asta's swords combination, so I had to make work with what I had. I'm sorry for that. I don't have like a personal artist who can help draw my thumbnails or anything. But yeah, getting into the what if. So, before we start this what if, we have to go 1,000 years back into the past, in the year 1255. I know that's not 1,000, that's more like 845 years in the past, but we're going to go say it's 1,000 because it sounds better. There once stood 4 great kingdoms, each kingdom bearing one of the houses of cards. You had the Clover Kingdom, the Spade Kingdom, the Heart Kingdom, and the Diamond Kingdom. 2 of the 4 kingdoms were at war before one of the 4 kingdoms took over. The Diamond and Clover Kingdom were fighting constantly when the Spade took over the Diamond Kingdom to expand its territories. And this is the final battle that happened. We find a man with white hair and green-colored eyes with some black aura that makes him resemble half-devil fighting against other opponents. The battle was long and hard-fought, but he was able to take out his opponents that he was facing. Afterwards, the man had decided that magic alone was too dangerous. So he asked his friend who could able to steal stuff to steal most of the magic in the world, which she obliged to. But she could only seal the powers of the grimoires that weren't demon affected. And some of the magic that humans had. The man agreed, and magic was sealed, and all grimoires were burnt and thrown away to make sure no one could master magic to the same extent, meaning no one can form a contract with a devil ever again. The man ended up dying of old age. Afterwards, the 4 kingdoms eventually fell apart thanks to the great war that the Spade Nation has brought to all the other nations. Eventually, as time ticked on, no one remembered the 4 great nations, or that magic is what magic is. Eventually, as time went on, magic slowly started to die out until there was only a very few set of people who had magic remaining. But as the effects of the seal that was placed on the world almost 1,000 years ago wore off, magic started to come back. But then people called this magic quirks, in essence of them being something new and different, and made every single person different. And that's where we pick up. Meet a boy. His name is Izuku Midoriya, son of Inko Midoriya, and I think his name is Futoshi Midoriya. The boy was a part of the 20% of people in the world that didn't have any quirk. And yet, he never really found a just for this. He constantly trained his body every day, because he never gave up. He also studied magic, because he studied quirks, because he thought quirks were amazing. The basis of them was amazing. Everything about them was amazing. As Deku kept studying them, eventually, time flew by. Deku became well known in his town for being quirkless, but Deku didn't find anything against this. He already understood that he was quirkless and that his abilities were different than everyone else for it, but that just meant he had to work twice as hard. And his work showed for it. He had near superhuman strength. He was very quick with his attacks. Most people would just assume he had a strength enhancement quirk because of his strength and speed, but it was all because of pure training. One day, In the end of the middle school year, their teacher had stated, after passing out papers, "You need to think of your future. All y'all need to think about what you're doing." And then the teacher laughed after collecting all the pictures, and he's like, "I don't even have to read these papers. I know what y'all are going to do. Y'all are going to become heroes." Everyone went wild using their quirks and everything. Suddenly, a yellow-haired student with red eyes stood up and said, "Don't let me in with these D-rate personnel. I'm better and faster and stronger than all of them." And the teacher looked at the paper and he read, "Katsuki Bakugo, you're trying to get into UA. With your quirk, not mention your skill, I would assume you would." "Oh, Izuku Midoriya, you're also trying to get into UA," the teacher said. And Deku responded, Yeah, I am." This upsetted the blonde-haired personnel, who said, "You think you can get into UA, you shitty Deku?" Deku started to tense up. He had a base fear of this kid. He never understood why. Most people didn't really scare him, but this guy scared him every time. Maybe it might be because he was his childhood friend, who had bullied him for years. Deku thought to himself, Yeah, Kachan?" The teacher tells everyone to quiet down and settle down and sit back to their seats. Bakugo reluctantly agrees. As class let out, Deku was about to stand up and grab his stuff. Bakugo then grabbed one of the notebooks Deku had. Quirk Analyzation number 13. He read through the book and saw that his quirk was in there. "Didn't I tell you not to put my quirks in your shitty nerd book? You shitty nerd." And Deku says, I'm sorry, Kachan. Your quirk is just amazing." "Whatever, shitty nerd. Why don't you jump off the roof? Maybe you'll find happiness in your next life," he says as he blows up Deku's notebook and tosses it out the window. Deku passes this off as another response from Bakugo. It was his normal stick, yelling at him, cussing at him, telling him he'll never be good enough to do anything. He's experienced this all before, so he already knew what Bakugo was said before he said it. Afterwards, Deku grabbed his notebook and picked it up. He then walked over back to his house, but he decided to take a new route today. For whatever reason, something told him to take a new route, but he wasn't thinking much about it. During this route, he saw the manhole cover being opened. He was kind of caught off guard by this, but it wasn't that much. Afterwards, when he walked past, suddenly something felt like it gripped his leg. Deku looked down and saw this weird green goop on his leg, and then eventually the green goop turned into a big giant blob that was trying to suffocate him. The blob spoke, saying, "I didn't know that freak was in town, kid. Let me take control of your body." Deku tried to resist, but he couldn't. His consciousness began to fade as he felt something come towards him at a quick speed. He felt darkness from it. Deku reached his hand forward instinctively, and out of nowhere a book appeared in front of him. It was a black cover with 5-leaf clover on it, or what appeared to be a 5-leaf clover. Deku didn't care at the moment, only knew that this book was in front of him. Deku looked at the book. The book opened, and then something started to come out of the book. Deku then grabbed the item itself and pulled it out. It was a giant blade, almost too heavy for Deku to even lift. Deku tried to use it to fend off the attacker. He tapped the man that looked to be sludge. The man recoiled back, saying, "Ah, that hurt a lot, you shitty kid. Is that your quirk?" Deku finally got the ability to breathe again and set the sword down on the ground, using it to support his weight. He took deep and heavy breaths. As he looks and he sees the book just floating there. Deku took deep breaths, looking back at the man. He's like, I don't know who you are, but I'm not letting you take control of my body, Deku said as he grabbed his sword and ready to attack the man. The man tried to come at him again, but every time Deku met him with the sword, he couldn't swing it too quickly and he was very clumsy with it. Suddenly, he heard someone shout, "Don't worry, for I am here." The person who shouted that then said, "Detroit Smash!" In front of Deku, he saw this man with what appeared to be gold hair and blue eyes. Deku instantaneously recognized this man and said, All Might? The man looks towards the kid holding some sort of weapon. All Might says, "Sir, don't you know that using your quirk is illegal? I'm sorry, but I don't even know what this is. It just kind of happened. I was about to be suffocated by this sludge villain, I assume, and out of nowhere, the book just appeared in front of me, and then this sword started to come out of the book, and it feels weird. It's like it has energy coming off of it." All Might was really confused on Deku's statements. He couldn't understand what Deku was talking about. Weird energy. Did this kid just awaken his quirk? All Might then tells the kid, "Well, go get it checked out by a doctor. If that is your quirk, then you should have it checked out. Especially because since you just awoken it, at least from what you're telling me. It also seems like your quirk is quite powerful. You were able to hold off the villain even though just awakening it." And Deku says, "Well, I've always trained my body because I figured I was going to be quirkless, and I still wanted to be a hero." All Might heard these words and quickly reminisced back to when he was younger and he wanted to be a hero, but he was born quirkless, so he couldn't. And then Deku continued stating that because of that, he always trained his body. And this sword was incredibly heavy. And All Might's like, "Let me feel this sword." Deku then tried to hand it to All Might, but as soon as All Might touched it, he felt it instantly drain his energy. All Might felt it was amazing. It was so quickly draining his energy. It was like his time limit had just shortened by an immense amount. All Might quickly handed the sword back to Deku, not wanting to go into his small form in front of this boy in front of him. And All Might says, "That's a pretty impressive quirk. It has weakened me to an extensive state by this point. Quite impressive if I do say so myself." Deku's like, "Really?" "Yeah." Next thing that happened was Deku helping All Might pick up all the parts of the sludge villain. All Might wished Deku good luck. Then Deku looked back at the book. The book was still floating, oddly enough. Deku took the sword and tried to put the sword back into the book. The book greatly accepted the sword. Deku then took the book and opened it and looked through the pages. It was writing he couldn't read, but he saw the picture of the sword he was just using. There was only 2 words that he could read, and that was the demon... Well, I can't remember this one. I don't want to say it's Demon Dweller, because I'm pretty sure Demon Dweller is the smaller one, and Demon Destroyer is the weird big-tipped one, but I can't remember what this sword is currently. But he knew it was something related to demons, and Deku kind of read that weird. He flipped over and saw a secondary sword on the next page. This sword looked smaller than his first one he summoned. It also looked a little bit different, and it had the name the Demon Dweller Sword, which Deku thought was pretty cool. Deku then flipped to the next page and read the Demon Destroyer Sword. And Deku thought, wow, all these swords seem to have demon related to him. And then Deku flipped to the 4th page that still had writing on it, and he saw that it was a katana looking like sword, but it didn't have a name. and Deku thought this was weird, but he didn't care at this point. Deku then took the book and closed it. He thought it was weird that his quirk just stayed out in the open like that, but he really didn't care. He tried to find a place to put it, and he put it inside his bag as he ran home to his mom. When he entered, he said, Mom, I have a quirk." Inko was kind of shocked, and she's like, "What, a quirk? How? I thought they said you were quirkless." "Yeah, I know. That's what I thought too, but today I got attacked by a sludge villain, and then I met All Might, and before that I got my quirk." And Inko's like, "Wait a minute, you got attacked by a sludge villain? What sludge villain? What happened?" Deku explained how he had almost died being attacked by a sludge villain. This quickly raised alarm to Inko, and then Deku explained that he was okay, and also he had a quirk. He reached in the bag and brought out the book. Inko looked at the book, and she was quite confused. And Deku stated, "Well, see, these are swords, and I can bring swords out of this book and put swords back in. I don't know if I can put any sword in, but I know I can put swords that I've taken out back in." Deku then reached into the book itself and pulled out his sword that he pulled out when he was fighting the sludge villain. He's like, "This is the only sword I've pulled out currently. It's extremely heavy, and I can barely lift it with both hands," he says as he's gripping both hands. Inko sees the book floating in midair now, being surrounded by a red mist-like aura, and she said, "We need to get you to the doctor now." Deku said, "Oh, okay." They were taken to the doctor, and the doctor, who wasn't Deku's original doctor he went to, this doctor was named Dr. Lee. And Dr. Lee said, "Miss Inko, what is the problem?" And then she said, "My son has manifested a quirk." "A quirk at this late of an age? As not to mention also his x-rays, are you sure?" And Inko said, "Yeah, you can look at his quirk himself." And Deku said, "Hi." And the doctor's like, "Okay, sir, what's your quirk?" Deku then pulled the book out from his pocket that he had stored it in. He's like, "It's this book. It appeared to me when I was being attacked by a villain, and I can pull swords outside the book itself." And the doctor's like, "Can you please presentate this?" Deku said, "Sure." Deku grabbed the secondary sword, the Demon Dweller sword, out of the book. And I'm very sorry if I'm getting these sword names wrong. I really will apologize right now. I'm pretty sure I'm getting them right. I just can't say for sure, and I'm very sorry if I'm getting these names wrong. I'm talking about a smaller sword. Deku grabbed it out of the book, and the sword appeared to be a short sword, seemed to be in the medieval era style. And Deku stated, "This is the second sword I can grab, out of the 4 swords I can grab." And he's like, "Can you lay the swords down on the table, or do they disappear after you let go of them?" And Deku said, "No, they don't disappear." And All Might says it appears to have drained his energy. And the doctor's like, "His energy? Let me hold the sword for a minute." Deku put the sword in the hand of the doctor. And the doctor could instantaneously feel like his energy was being sapped away from him, like he almost couldn't do anything. Afterwards, the doctor said, "Okay, I think I understand. I think these swords have some sort of lifesteal ability." And Deku's like, "Lifesteal?" "Yes, or something of the sort. I can feel a weird energy coming off of them," Deku said as well. And doctor's like, "A weird energy? What do you mean?" "Well, this sword doesn't nearly have as much as my first sword does, but I can feel it. It feels like an energy that's like the opposite energy of life. So it's like a death sword? I don't know." And then the doctor says, "Okay, let's test your quirk by testing them against other quirks." After multiple tests on varying different people, they found out that Deku's swords seemed to be able to nullify quirks, or at least nullify quirks that have been set in motion that are projectiles, and stop users if he has them touching them from using their quirks, which is very impressive. Deku continued this, and he eventually got better and better with his swords as well. Eventually, the Hero Association stepped in after hearing that they had another student with the ability to nullify quirks. Not to mention his ability seems to be way stronger than Aizawa's ability, or also known as Eraserhead. Deku was told that he'll receive special training for the next 10 months from the Hero Association, and also that everything else was going to happen to him and other stuff, so he should be prepared. He'll still have to take the entrance exam for UA, but he should be able to pass just fine. Afterwards, they enrolled Deku into multiple different sword training, teaching him how to use his sword and how it works, and, well, how to use a sword, not how to use his swords in general. Eventually, Deku, one day while training against a personnel that had a water-based quirk that he considered his friend, he was able to use a water-based move, which the researchers were just impressed by, and they're like, what's that? What just happened? And Deku responded saying, I do not know. All I know is that I felt like I could pull mana from someone else. I mean, not mana. I could, like, feel someone else's quirk and use it. And the Hero Association responded with, okay, so you can borrow quirks from people? And Deku said, I don't think it's borrowing. I think it's more like power imitation. I don't know how I can do it. It doesn't seem like I can do it on choice. It might be specific requirements, or maybe I have to get full control of the sword first. Deku mainly made progress on his first sword, learning how to use his first sword pretty well. He also learned that he can reflect projectiles back with his first sword as well. After learning his second sword's ability, he thought that was pretty cool too. 10 months had passed. It was almost before the night of the UA exam. Deku was sleeping in his house when he found himself in what appeared to be a red space. He couldn't see much anything else but red. And then suddenly he heard a voice, a very raspy yet a voice that he seemed to know. He's like, "Hey, kid." Deku turned around to see a giant figure behind him. It was a black figure representing what looked to be a humanoid creature with wings and horns. And Deku asked, "Who are you?" And the man responded, "Who am I doesn't matter. All you need to know is I'm living inside your grimoire, and I'm the one that's helping you currently." Deku responds, "Grimoire? Helping me? What do you mean?" "Well, I guess doctors call it the quirks now. But they were actually originally known as magic. Magic died out about around 800 years ago, after the Great War happened, after we finally defeated the upper-ranking demons. But they started to regain their power. Some of them have even reincarnated into the world as we speak. So I want to make a deal with you. You give me your body, and I give you more strength." Deku responded, "No." "Fine, kid. How about this? I'll let you use a little bit more of my power. My power is called anti-magic. That's the reason that you could feel that energy. You can also be able to use it, and if you harness it inside your body, if you're even ready for that, something amazing will happen." Deku's like, "What do you mean?" The demon responded, "Kid, you don't need to know currently. Just keep training. We need to get strong enough to defeat those bastards." Deku thought about this, and he said, "Okay, so what should your name be?" "Kid, like I said, I don't have a name. Just call me Mr. Demon for now." "Can I just call you Mr. D?" "Fine, kid, whatever you wish." "Okay, Mr. D. Nice to meet you," Deku said, extending his hand. The devil chuckled and shrinked his form down to be about around the same height as Deku and reached his hand out to shake it. Deku then woke up the next day, a little bit frightened, but not too much twisted, just thinking it was mainly a dream. And that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button, and if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.